Hi, everybody. Welcome to tonight's class, week number 4. I can't believe we're here already. I hope you guys are all doing well. Please say hi in the chat box. Let me know that you can see me and hear me. That's super important. I've got my fancy blue blocking glasses on. I know, I look super hot in these. But these are a must as I'm going through the slides and working on the computer all day and blocking that blue light. We're actually going to talk a little bit about that. Okay, so say hi, everyone. Can you hear me? Just let me know that you guys are there. And then we'll officially get started. We are diving into adrenal and thyroid health tonight, which I'm really excited about. It is obviously an area, being someone that has Hashimoto's, it is an area that I have had to work really, really hard on in terms of healing for myself, of course. And so there's just lots of great stuff to share here, especially because it's really an experience and something that I've gone through personally as well. And I know so many women that currently are going through issues with autoimmunity and also adrenal fatigue. I can bet that pretty much everybody on tonight's class is in one of the stages of adrenal fatigue, I'm pretty sure. Okay, is anyone there? I don't see anybody in the chat box. Maybe not. Hi, hello. Okay, so it's 7:04. I'm going to get started and I'm just going to share the screen, flip over to the slides, and we'll officially go. And I just really hope you guys can just post something in the chat box, say hi. And when I flip the screen to the slides, hi, Jill, let me know that you can see them as well, okay? And let's do this. Okay, so, whoa, what did I just do? Hold on a second. Let me do that again. I did something with my slides. Just a second. I lost the slides. They are hiding. Okay. So let me do that again. I lost my slides. Thanks for your patience, everybody. All right. Hi, Brenda. Hi, Michelle. Thank you so much for joining me tonight. I'm excited to dive into adrenal and thyroid health. I hope that you guys are excited for tonight's class. So let's get started. So here's what we're going to be covering tonight. So we are going to be covering the HPA axis and why that's important and what that even is. We're also going to dive into the adrenal and thyroid connection, obviously, being that we're talking about both adrenal and thyroid, and you might be thinking, what is the connection? We are also going to talk about adrenal fatigue and how to actually combat that. And I'm sure so many of us are suffering with that. And I can guarantee that there's different stages of adrenal fatigue. And I'm sure some of us are in one of those stages. And then we really want to understand the thyroid and its functions, and then dive into the foods, the supplements, the herbs, and lifestyle shifts that we can include in our everyday to support the adrenal and thyroid glands. So first off, we are starting with adrenals because they are really at the center stage in relationship to the body's ability to regulate hormones. When it comes to hormonal health, your adrenals are literally at the center of all of that. It is so vital that we support the health of the adrenal glands, because otherwise, none of the other hormones are going to be fully supported. If you have low estrogen, you need to support your adrenals. If you have high estrogen, you need to support your adrenals. You have low progesterone, high progesterone, you need to support your adrenals. You have hypothyroid or hyperthyroid, you need to support the adrenals. So it does not matter. You need to support the adrenals. It is really, really important. So the unfortunate thing is that 70 to 80% of all doctor visits are for stress-related conditions. And the kicker here is that those stress-related conditions are pretty much, for the most part, self-induced. And doctors have little to no training on adrenal fatigue or supporting the adrenals, and they really have nothing to offer other than temporary care relief, which is really unfortunate. Most women walk in there and complain about adrenal issues, or the fact that, I mean, most women may not walk in and be like, hey, I've got adrenal fatigue, but they're going to complain about the symptoms of feeling exhausted and not being able to sleep and not being able to wake up in the morning and maybe weight gain and having like moodiness and irritability. And the doctor's going to be like, well, here's an antidepressant or go on some birth control. Like, really, that seems to be the solution to so many things. And it's just really unfortunate because our doctors just don't really have the background on supporting adrenal health. So like every other class, I love to share a little photo of what our organs actually look like. Our organs, our glands, our hormones, all of it. And these tiny little adrenal glands sit on top of your kidneys. In fact, if you blink, you'd probably miss them because they are so super tiny and small, but so incredibly powerful. So again, I just think it's really important that we have an understanding, or at least this visual of what it looks like, because it just helps us make that deeper connection with our body. So cortisol, which we are probably all familiar with, and we tend to hate cortisol, or we think of it as a quote unquote bad hormone. And cortisol is really important because it is a very smart, no nonsense, strategic thinking hormone. And we want to produce cortisol because, especially if we are in a threatening situation, then we want our cortisol to be working for us, because it's what's actually going to give us the energy that we need and increase blood flow and our blood pressure and even the blood sugar. It's going to actually cause this big rush in the system for us to be able to adapt with a threat that could be attacking our nervous system, essentially. So we want that to happen if we're in a life-threatening situation. The problem is we're not in these life-threatening situations every day. We're dealing with work and with kids and with deadlines and bills and finances and all of that. And that's what our nervous system now thinks of as a threat. It cannot differentiate the difference between those two, between something life-threatening and a crazy to-do list. Your cortisol, it also regulates other hormones in the body. In fact, it's pretty much involved in, all your sex hormone production, as well as insulin and blood sugar. And the next point there, like I say there, it supports your blood sugar. So we're going to dive into a little bit deeper about that connection between blood sugar and insulin. And you might be familiar with this slide. I actually did a webinar back in October, and I was sharing a little bit about the hormonals, Charlie's Angels, if you remember that, which is your cortisol, your estrogen, and your thyroid. And cortisol is really at the top of that, being sort of, I guess you could say, in a sense, the strongest Charlie's Angel. And that's what cortisol is, and that's why cortisol is so important, and why it's so important we support the adrenals, because it really is at like the top of that cascade effect. And if we support the cortisol, we can support the other hormones as well. Okay, so you might be familiar with this slide that I also shared back in a webinar in October, and I was talking about the connection between the adrenals and the brain. And this is what the HPA axis is. So the hypothalamus pituitary adrenal axis, and otherwise known as HPA. There's also an axis with your thyroid. There's also the HPO axis, which is your hypothalamic pituitary ovarian axis. So it's basically saying that these glands, these organs are communicating with your brain, and your brain is really in control of the production of a lot of these hormones. And So your adrenal glands, it communicates with your brain. It communicates with the hypothalamus and the pituitary gland, and it's how it receives its cortisol, essentially. And so if you have a stressor that's going on in the body, well, cortisol is going to speak to the brain and it's going to say, hey, there's a stressor happening. Give me some cortisol. And the brain is going to say, oh, okay, yeah, I can see that, you know, your senses are heightened and blood pressure is going up, and yeah, you definitely need some cortisol. So we'll send cortisol to the adrenals. And what happens is your body is doing this all day long, and it's asking the brain for the cortisol and essentially for the support. And this communication keeps going on and on and on and on and on. And at some point, it's going to become exhausted. That communication is just going to get worn out. And the brain is going to be like, I'm just too tired sending you all of this. And the adrenals might even forget to communicate to the brain and say, hey, I don't need any more cortisol. So that communication just keeps going and going and going. And at some point, it's going to get exhausted. So with stress responses, we are really designed for one stressor. And for example, running from a tiger, right? That is a life-threatening situation, and that is something that's going to trigger our nervous system. So we have our sympathetic nervous system and we have our parasympathetic nervous system. So the sympathetic nervous system is known as the hunting system, and the parasympathetic system is known as the campfire. And so what happens is, if we have a threat that's happening, it's going to trigger the sympathetic nervous system. Okay. That's the like alert mode. And that's the hunting mode. It's the fight and flight mode, or fight, flight, or freeze. And typically this stress that triggers that nervous system will last 1 to 2 hours. And then we go back to our parasympathetic nervous system. So I've shared the example before, and you may have heard this, of being in your car and you're driving along on a nice sunny day, and you got your music going and you're singing in the car, and it's a beautiful day and you're just having a great time. You feel really great. And then out of your rearview mirror, you see this crazy person driving behind you, and it looks like they're going to hit you. So you literally go on this alert mode, right? Your sympathetic nervous system gets stimulated. Your heart rate goes up. You might start sweating. You get scared, and you're maybe a little bit fearful, and you're like, you feel threatened for your life. Like something could happen here, and you are avoiding a life-threatening situation. So as that's all happening in your body, and now the cortisol and the adrenaline is surging through your system, the second your nervous system got that alert, what's happening is your adrenal glands are communicating with the brain to send those hormones so that you can function and basically think clearly and save your life. That's what's happening here. So as this is all happening, this stress that's typically happening, okay, so now you're in your car, the crazy person's coming towards you, and then you swerve out of the way, you avoid the situation, everything's okay, you carry on driving, and you've avoided the situation, it's all good, okay? So now your blood pressure is starting to lower, the sweating's going away, you're taking some deep breaths, you soften the shoulders away from your ears, you don't feel so tense, so you're good now. But those hormones that were released during that episode typically will stay around in your system for about 1 to 2 hours, and then will return back to the parasympathetic nervous system. So it could really take us a full 1 to 2 hours before we basically feel fully calm. But what's happening is, with our everyday to-do lists and running around like mad women, and having to deal with kids and with deadlines and finances, and being at work or being at a job that we hate, and working for a boss that we absolutely hate, and not getting along with employees or whoever, and arguments at work and at home and with your kids, like all kinds of things, right? And then that's what is triggering our sympathetic nervous system. It's not a potential car accident. It's this crazy busy lifestyle that is causing us to be in the sympathetic nervous system. And we're not really returning back to the parasympathetic nervous system ever, because it's just go, 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 go all the time. And our body is not designed for that. And so this is where the breakdown starts to really happen. So this is really where adrenal fatigue starts to take place. And it's really our modern lifestyle that can cause the adrenals to oversecrete the hormones and eventually become fatigued or exhausted from this constant overfiring. So it's just this go, 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 go mode all the time. And your body can't tell whether, okay, this person's just in go mode because they have a crazy deadline at work, or this person's in go mode because they're potentially avoiding a car accident. Your body doesn't know the difference. Your adrenals and your brain, it doesn't know the difference. So it reacts in the same way as a life-threatening situation. So there's different stages of adrenal fatigue, and it might be one thing to have these. It's one thing to go through, like I said, something that's life-threatening. That's just very acute. But when we have this to-do list and all of these crazy things and lifestyle factors that are causing us a lot of stress, and it's happening every day, every day, every day for 10, 20, 30 plus years, we're now heading into like real chronic stress. And it's over those years where we can really start to go through these different stages of adrenal fatigue. So we're going to dive into these different stages. And I'm pretty sure that you guys are in one of these stages. Okay, so stage one is wired and tired. So your cortisol levels are naturally elevated in the morning, which is a good thing. That's what we want. We want the cortisol to be high because that's what actually wakes us up in the morning. But stage one is typically characterized by elevated cortisol at night. So your cortisol should actually be low at night, and it should be dropping at nighttime, because that's what allows the melatonin to now take place so that we can go to sleep. So we end up getting this really like wired feeling at night, and we have a really hard time falling asleep. So I'm not sure about you guys, but I've definitely felt this wired and tired feeling where it's just like, I'm really tired at like 5, 6 o'clock. And then all of a sudden like 8, 9 o'clock comes and I'm like, wow, I got this like super burst of energy and I can just go all night and I can just watch movies and stay up and I don't need to go to bed. And it's just like wired and tired feeling. It's like, I'm kind of tired, but I'm also really wired and feel like I've got this extra burst of energy around. So typically people in this stage will feel like they're also on edge, which is definitely something I can relate to. Feeling this, like that little bit of irritability. It's like, I really want to relax, but it's like, I almost can't. And just that like irritability, I'm like in limbo between wanting to relax and wanting to do stuff. Anyone can relate to that? Okay. And then there's stage two. So stressed and tired. So the second stage shows more severe cortisol disruption. So basically you will have higher cortisol in the morning, but it will fall pretty quickly after lunch. So this is where that like 2 or 3 p.m. crash comes and you get really, really tired and you get this like mental brain fog where maybe you're at work and you like just cannot process anything anymore. Like nothing is just going through. And then you also get a second wind at night, but most often you wake up in the middle of the night and you're unable to fall back asleep. Definitely something I can also relate to. Feeling like I can fall asleep no problem, and I've got this great sleep going until maybe 3 in the morning, sometimes 4, and then I wake up and it's just like, damn, I can't get back to sleep, and I'm tossing and turning. All right. And then this brings us to stage 3, where this is basically a full burnout. So this is how a woman would feel in her early pregnancy, or if she's got a new baby at home, where you are just exhausted all the time. It doesn't matter how much sleep you get. So your cortisol patterns in this stage are completely disrupted or completely flatlined. And you have a higher risk of thyroid disease and autoimmune disease, as well as gut problems once you've hit stage 3. Okay, I'm going to come back to this chat and see if there's any questions. Nope, nothing. Okay, we're good. Okay, so Let's dive into some symptoms of adrenal fatigue now. And I'd love to hear from you guys in the chat. Does anybody relate to any of stage 1, stage 2, or stage 3 adrenal fatigue? It's pretty safe to say that, especially in my case with Hashimoto's, I kind of started out, I kind of experienced a little bit of all of them. I experienced the wired and tired feeling. I definitely wake up in the middle of the night. And then I also, where it says higher risk of thyroid disease and autoimmune disease, well, I'm already there, right? And I have a history of gut issues and digestive issues. And I've also done my Dutch hormone testing, and I pretty much bankrupt my DHEA, which is a stress hormone, so or sex hormone. So it's involved in like cortisol and sex hormone production, and I pretty much bankrupt that, which basically goes to show my adrenals need a lot of support, which is what I've been doing, and feel so much better for doing that. Okay, so symptoms of adrenal fatigue. So the need for stimulants like caffeine. I know this is a really, really big one. And I know that Janet has actually stopped drinking caffeine while going through this program, which is amazing. So let's give her like a virtual high five for that, because I know that she was drinking lots of coffee and she wanted to cut that out. And so she's been rocking it and not having the caffeine. When you feel like you need that caffeine and you need the stimulant, that's the issue, the need for it. Like you can't function without it. Tiredness when you wake up. So no matter how much sleep you got, you're always tired in the morning. Difficulty falling asleep or waking up in the morning, or even waking up throughout the night. You may have a reduced ability to handle stress or feeling stress more often. And really about like the little things, like even the littlest things is just something you can't handle and you're feeling overwhelmed and stressed by it. Abdominal fat is going to be a really big one of adrenal fatigue, and specifically metabolic syndrome. So having either like insulin resistance, blood sugar irregularities, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, diabetes, and maybe obesity. So I have quite a few slides here of symptoms of adrenal fatigue because there are a lot of symptoms. So you may also experience decreased sex drive, low libido, blood sugar imbalances or diabetes, definitely digestive problems, because as if your adrenals are on this like go mode all the time, it shuts down the digestive process. And so I'm sure you probably experienced this before, where you've been in a really, really stressed state and the last thing you want to do is eat. So like something I can think of, for example, is like a lot of people have this fear of like public speaking. Can you imagine being on stage or like 20 minutes before you have to go present on stage, and you're like super charged up and you're like cortisol surging through your body and the adrenaline is going? You're not going to like sit down 20 minutes before you go on stage and eat a steak. Like that's not going to happen, right? You will not be able to digest that, nor will you even be hungry. Like it just completely shuts down digestion. And typically, at the same time, like when you are stressed, no one's ever probably said, oh, I'm so stressed right now, I just want to eat a big kale salad. No, you're stressed and you say to yourself, like, I just want to eat like a big plate of pasta or carbs or have a glass of wine, right? That's what you want when you're really stressed. Okay, so reduced memory or ability to concentrate. So kind of having that like brain fog going on. Dizziness when standing up too quickly. So this can also be in relation to your blood pressure, because aldosterone is what actually helps with your sodium levels in the body, which is also in relation to adrenal health. And so your blood pressure may be low if you find that you have adrenal fatigue, and then you get this dizziness when you sit up. So it's just like all the blood, it's not surging through your system enough, and then you get up really, really fast and you kind of get this rush. Thyroid problems or low thyroid hormone production, because having high amounts of cortisol shuts down thyroid stimulating hormone production. You may also have food cravings, especially for salt and sugar. So the salty and the sweet. I know a lot of clients that love the combo of both. which is why they have popcorn with like little pieces of chocolate in them. So that's really your adrenal glands talking. It's like you want the best of both, the salty and the sweet. Decreased immune function and getting sick more often. So definitely a symptom of adrenal fatigue. Or you just find that it's taking a really long time to recover when you actually do get sick or you do get the cold or the flu. Body aches and pains. This is a pretty common one. Depression, any type of anxiety as well. Irritability. Also, irregular periods or heavy periods, autoimmune conditions like Hashimoto's, and then even something farther down the line that may develop is like lupus or rheumatoid arthritis, having delayed wound healing, infertility, PCOS, which is polycystic ovarian syndrome, and accelerated aging. And that last one is a really big one because I'm not sure about you, but I have definitely run into friends who I haven't seen in a really long time, and they don't look so great. I mean, there's a handful of people I can think off the top of my head where, I've run into them and they have this full head of gray hair and more wrinkles and this extra weight around their belly, and they just look exhausted. And you start speaking with them and it's like, yeah, there's, work's going on and kids and all these things and work is busy. And it's just like this crazy busy lifestyle and they're not taking care of themselves. So that's going to be adrenal fatigue, and that's going to cause accelerated aging. So let's dive into stress and emotional eating because, like I just said a few minutes ago, when we're stressed, the last thing we want to do is reach for a big bowl of salad. We don't want to eat healthy when we're stressed or we have some like crazy deadline or somebody yelling at us at work. We really want to go like reach for that glass of wine, or we want to have the plate of pasta, or we want to have pizza. We want to have the carbs. So as we know, stress is going to cause our cortisol, our stress hormone, to rise. When we have higher amounts of cortisol, this will equal more belly fat. It's much easier to gain weight when your cortisol is high because cortisol is a fat storing hormone. And high cortisol is obviously going to cause us to reach for high carbohydrate food. And why? Because those carbs are comforting to us. That's what we want. We want to be comforted during those times. And the problem with that is that those high carbs are going to increase the insulin in the body, which equals more belly fat. So cortisol and insulin, and you may have heard me say this before, they are both fat storing hormones. They communicate to each other. And if you have a high insulin, you are going to have high cortisol, and vice versa. High cortisol is going to cause the insulin to go up. So when it comes to weight loss, we really need to address these hormones. And that's exactly what I do with my clients. I am addressing the cortisol and the insulin levels and working to balance out that blood sugar to bring the weight down. When it comes to weight loss, we really want to support weight loss from a hormonal perspective because that's what's actually going to help us keep the weight off long term. So what can cause adrenal fatigue? So aside from the obvious, there's going to be emotional stressors or traumas that may happen in our lifetime. I get that. Those are going to be an obvious cause of adrenal fatigue. But there are these other issues that can cause adrenal fatigue. So things like artificial light exposure at night, which is why I'm wearing my blue blocking glasses. So if you are on your laptop late at night, or you've got your laptop with you in bed, or your phone with you in bed, or the TV on in your bedroom, this exposure to the artificial light is going to mess up your circadian rhythm. And your cortisol is involved in that circadian rhythm. Cortisol rises during the day to get you up. Cortisol lowers at night to produce your melatonin to go to sleep. If you are exposing yourself to that artificial light through the laptop, even having really bright lights on in your house, your phone, iPad, TV, whatever it might be, then you're lowering your melatonin production and it's not going to help with your sleep. Overuse of caffeine and stimulants. Of course, this is going to be a big cause of adrenal fatigue. If you are abusing the coffee and abusing those stimulants, you're overworking those adrenal glands and overproducing the cortisol and the adrenaline when it doesn't need to be produced. This is actually why we get a boost when we drink caffeine, because caffeine actually causes us to basically produce adrenaline, and we get that surge through the system, and that's why we feel that caffeine boost. Having poor sleep patterns or habits. So just like I mentioned so poor sleep habits would be things like, having the phone with you in the bed or the laptop or something like that, or having a TV in your bedroom, having the lights on really bright at night. Those are really bad sleep habits. Even little things like if you're in bed at night with your partner and all you're doing is like talking about work, that's a poor sleep habit, because now it's going to cause your brain to get into a sympathetic nervous mode, right? It's going to cause the cortisol to go up because you're going to start thinking about work, and you might start worrying, or then it might cause you to even get out of bed because now you remembered you got to go take care of something. So that's a poor sleep habit. And then when I say poor sleep patterns, now of course, not having good sleep can affect your adrenals. But what I'm really talking about here is like, if you're staying up till 2 o'clock in the morning because you're like watching TV all night, or you're on the computer doing work, and if you have like this irregular cycle with your sleep where some days you're waking up at 10 and other days you're up at 6, and some nights you're going to bed at 2 and other nights you're going to bed at midnight, and it's just all over the place, those are poor sleeping patterns. So you really want to get into a routine here. A nutrient depleted diet, and a diet obviously high in processed foods. So this is obviously going to cause adrenal fatigue. Your adrenals, as with all the other organs and glands in your body, there's hormones involved in all of this. Those hormones need food. Those hormones need nourishment. You need amino acids from really high quality food to support the adrenals, to support the thyroid. You need antioxidants to support the adrenals. Otherwise, you're going to have a lot of oxidation happening in the body, which is going to lead to inflammation, accelerated aging, hormonal imbalance. So we obviously want a really clean whole foods diet. Environmental pollution exposure. So this can be from the air, the water, home environment. There's all kinds of things where we can get this pollution and this chemical toxicity from, and that can really play a role on our adrenal health. Extended low-level stress from work or family problems. And this low-level stress, this is a big one to pay attention to, because this is the low-level stress that can carry on for 10, 20, 30, 40 plus years. It's just this kind of like, oh yeah, I can kind of deal with it, but I'm not really happy with my job, and I don't really love my boss, but I can just do it and it's fine. I get a paycheck. Some days are good at work, some days aren't. But if you're at a job for 40 plus years and you hate what you're doing and you're not excited to wake up there every day, and all you're doing is going there for a paycheck and it's not bringing you any joy, you don't think that's going to cause issues with your adrenals? Of course it is. That can actually be some of the biggest reasons why we experience our symptoms, is because we are doing things that are not bringing us joy, and they're really crushing our spirit, and they're robbing us of this happiness and of our creativity and how we are really supposed to be self-expressed. So we really got to start paying attention to some of those things. And this is why these are the things easier said than done. And it can really be a process to work on those things or change and transform these things in our life. How we eat. Yes, how we eat. And I'm not just talking about what we eat, but how we eat. If you are in your car and scarfing down food while you're driving to work, that's a stressor to the body. If you are eating when you're in a highly stressed state and you're just really jacked up because of something and you're trying to force food down, that can cause an issue with stress and play a role with the adrenals, affect the adrenals. If you are, and I often see this with many women, they wake up in the morning, they're not hungry, they don't eat, they get to work, they're so busy, they forget to eat lunch, 6 o'clock comes and we're like, oh yeah, I haven't eaten a meal yet. that is going to cause stress in the body and affect how you eat. And affect your cortisol levels. So we really have to be paying attention to how we eat and making it a point to actually sit down and not eat in front of our computer, not eat while we're doing work, and just not eat while we're driving in our car, and create an environment that we can really slow down and enjoy our meal so that we can actually digest effectively. And it's really wild. Like, there's a lot of women that I work with in my one-on-one practice, and they are just, when they see like their meal plans and things like that, they're just like, oh my God, like how am I going to eat lunch? And it's just like, what do you mean? How are you going to eat lunch? And they're just like, well, I'm at work. And it's just crazy to think like you don't have a lunch break. Like, and it's just, it's like, well, no, I kind of do, but I got big deadlines and I can't just, it's like, it's so crazy to think like you can't eat while you're at work. Like, what, we should be able to have a really honest and open conversation with our bosses and explain that, like, yeah, I'm here to do really great work, but I'm also going to take 20 minutes to go eat my meal. Like, I'm going to eat food. You want me to function here at work and produce great results? I need to fuel my body and eat some food. So we end up neglecting so much about ourselves and our health because of our jobs and sometimes what's quote unquote required of us at these jobs, without actually standing our ground and being really bold and asking for what it is we really need. And then again, 30, 40 years go by and we wonder why our health is suffering so much. So chronic stress, chronic adrenal stress has a major impact on our immunity. Over time, this can increase our risk of developing chronic inflammation and autoimmunity. And it's exactly what happened with me. I love my job. I love what I do. And I am such a, happy, joyful person. You wouldn't think that I would be stressed. But again, having a to-do list of 25 things on my list is no different than running from a tiger in the jungle. Like, my body doesn't know the difference. My body isn't going to take me off the hook and say like, oh, she's distressed today because she's got that crazy to-do list. So let's give her a break. The body doesn't know that. So of course, over time, like, that becomes a chronic stress, even though it is something that I love what I do. So when it comes to healing adrenal fatigue, it is not a quick fix. You have to keep this in mind. So many people go on supplements and 2 weeks later, they're like, I don't feel better. Forget it. This natural health stuff doesn't work. Eating healthy doesn't work. I'm not going to do this anymore. It can take an entire year for you to work on healing your adrenals, if not longer. And the one way you can heal them faster is if you 100% eliminate the thing that's causing you stress in your life, which is, again, the hardest part, right? Because oftentimes for people, it is their job. It's doing something that is so mind-numbing and they hate, and that's the biggest stressor in their life. If you can just eliminate that like tomorrow, well, then your adrenals are going to heal way faster. It won't take a year. So it's not a quick fix, and you really need to be committed to this for the long term. Me, with my adrenal health, it's taking my supplements long term. It's focusing on my sleep. It's slowing down. It's all these other things I'm going to dive into shortly. But it's a combination of all these things. And I have to recognize it's for the long term, and I'm not here for a quick fix. So don't give up on yourself so quickly, because I know oftentimes that is often what I see. And that's the case with so many of my clients, where it's like, oh, I tried this diet for a week and it didn't work. I tried these supplements. I don't really feel any difference. It's like, you need to do this long term. Nothing's going to happen overnight. And the adrenal and the hormonal imbalances, it didn't happen overnight either. It took years. So let's really give it the time it needs to heal. All right, so now we are going to dive into the thyroid, and then we're going to really clear up the connection between the thyroid and the adrenal glands and how you can support both of them, and especially your adrenals, because supporting your adrenals means you're going to support all your other hormones. So your adrenal glands, it's this beautiful butter-shaped gland, and it's pretty much right in your neck, and it is what really governs metabolism in your body. And again, I'm showing you the picture so you can really see what it looks like. And oftentimes people are like, oh, I didn't know that that's where the adrenal or where the thyroid gland is located, right? So now you know. So your thyroid, when it is in balance and healthy and functioning optimally, you are going to feel energetic and healthy and slim and happy and have these really great balanced moods. And you're going to feel sexy in your skin. You're going to have this metabolism that's fired up and helps you to burn fat and helps you maintain your weight. You're going to have really good sleep and sleep really deeply. Your digestion's going to be flowing, and you're going to digest your food thoroughly, and you won't have all this bloating or gas or issues going on with digestion. And you will also have an easier time conceiving if that is something that you'd like to do, because the thyroid governs the metabolism of your ovaries. So it really does support reproduction and fertility. So the thyroid and adrenal glands, they work hand in hand. The thyroid is what I call the thermostat or the furnace of your body, and the adrenal glands are the gas tank of the body. If you are in a stress state, the adrenals will be up and the thyroid will be down. You can't have both going at the same time. In other words, if you have a low functioning thyroid, it means you have high functioning adrenals. I really love that because it just really paints the picture so clearly of why you may have low functioning thyroid. I love it. If you have low functioning thyroid, you have high functioning adrenals, which means you've got high stress going on and high cortisol going on. And that is one of the number one areas you need to address in order to support the thyroid. So let's look at the thyroid hormones. So we've got our TSH, which is our thyroid stimulating hormone. We have free T4, free T3, reverse T3, anti-TPO, and anti-TG. The last two there with the stars on there, those aren't actually thyroid hormones. Those are thyroid antibodies. When you go to your doctor, you need to demand that they test all 6 of these, 100%. And oftentimes they're going to say no, or they're going to run the tests and like 1 or 2 of them are going to be missing. And if they will not run the tests, then you have to pay out of pocket and go to a naturopath and ask for a full thyroid panel because your life actually depends on it and you need to get this testing done. 1 in 3 women are diagnosed with autoimmunity, and most of that is Hashimoto's. So if your antibodies are elevated, it means you have Hashimoto's. And the only way to know that is to get tested. So it is really unfortunate that our doctors don't run this as routine blood work, but they really should. And it's so important that you work with your doctor to get this testing done. With that said, if your doctor does run all of these tests, then you need to get a copy of those tests and then go work with either myself, another nutritionist, a naturopath, a functional medical practitioner, anybody to get the tests interpreted properly because your doctor will not interpret them for you. So either way, you're going to have to spend some money here, and it is 100% worth it because your life depends on it and your future self depends on it, because this can literally mean preventing autoimmunity, lupus, rheumatoid arthritis, thyroid cancer, all of it. So it's really important that you get the testing done. So when it comes to the thyroid, oftentimes doctors are testing TSH, which really doesn't show us anything. We have our free T4 and our free T3, and that's really important to test because free T3 is the active thyroid hormone. And T4, so T4 and T3 get produced by the thyroid gland, and they get bound to a protein, and then they get converted so T4 gets converted to T3. And in order for that conversion to happen, you need to have a really healthy liver, kidneys, intestines, and lungs. So, in order to get active thyroid hormone and to support your mood, your weight, your energy, metabolism, your skin, your ovaries, reproduction, all of it, in order to have that, you need T4 to be converted. But if your liver is full of toxins and loaded with sugar and you're eating really poorly and you're not detoxifying effectively, well, T4 is not going to get converted. If your kidneys aren't functioning properly, T4 is not going to get converted. If you got issues with gut health and leaky gut and inflammation in the intestines, T4 isn't going to get converted. If you have issues with your lungs, even asthma, T4 isn't going to get converted. And you want it to get converted because it needs to get to T3 in order for the thyroid to truly function optimally. Another thing to keep in mind here is that your reverse T3, if that's really, really high, it means your T3 isn't really working very well. And T3 is how you actually burn fat. So if your T3 is really high, it means your body's ability to burn fat is really low. I hope that really all makes sense because it can be really complicated here when going through thyroid hormones and really understanding how they all work. So bottom line here, we want to get this testing done and we want to make sure we're supporting the liver, the kidneys, the intestines, and the lungs as best as we can in order to actively produce thyroid hormone. That's really what we want to do. And then we want to make sure we take these tests and get somebody to interpret it for us so that we can make sure we have any type of proper diagnosis and nothing goes missed here so that we can even see if there's like any autoimmunity or anything going on there. Okay. So what are some causes of hypothyroidism? Well, there's definitely quite a few. Stress obviously being one of them because high cortisol stops the production of thyroid stimulating hormone. Nutrient deficiencies are also going to cause hypothyroidism, so low thyroid function, okay? Selenium is really important here because it's actually needed for the production of T3. You'll find in different thyroid formulas that it contains selenium because it's a really important mineral to support that production. Heavy metal exposure can really cause issues with the thyroid and mercury. Oftentimes people do have mercury fillings and those can pose an issue. So you can definitely do some heavy metal testing and see where your heavy metals are at. Chronic illness, of course, will affect the thyroid. Oxidized polyunsaturated fatty acids, canola oil, soybean oil, sunflower, safflower, these type of vegetable oils are no good, very pro-inflammatory in the body, so we want to make sure we get them out. Processed foods and additives, inflammation, any inflammation that's going on in the body is going to cause low thyroid. Inflammation in the gut means you have a hormonal imbalance no matter what. High estrogen, this is a really big one. T4 and T3, they bind to a protein. And that protein sort of goes through the body and then it works to get converted and all of that. But what also binds to that protein is estrogen. And if there's estrogen that's bound to that protein, that's also going to affect the conversion of T4 to T3. So birth control pills contain really high amounts of estrogen. And we spoke about estrogen dominance. And if we have issues going on with estrogen dominance, it's going to affect our thyroid and potentially lower our thyroid production. Gut issues, leaky gut, this is going to pose an issue as well. And of course, Hashimoto's. Hashimoto's actually tends to be the #1 cause of low thyroid because what's happening there is your immune system is now involved in this process and it's on this hyper attack mode and it's attacking the thyroid gland, which is what is Hashimoto's. It's a autoimmune thyroiditis is another way to say it. Okay, so symptoms of hypothyroid. So if you have low thyroid function, what symptoms may you be experiencing? Persistent fatigue, lethargy, and sometimes depression or low motivation to exercise, moodiness and anxiety, intolerance to cold and feeling chilly a lot of the time, dry hair and dry skin, brain fog, trouble concentrating or forgetfulness, maybe a hoarse voice, unexplainable weight gain, constipation, bloating, and other digestive issues, muscle weakness and aches and pains in your body, and menstrual issues or heavy bleeding. Now, what about hyperthyroid? Hyperthyroid is when you're producing too much thyroid. So it's the opposite. It's not low, it's high thyroid. So you may experience nervousness and anxiety, insomnia, or have issues with sleep, racing heart, eyes that appear large and sometimes bulge. You can have unexplained weight loss, high amounts of perspiration, muscle weakness, multiple bowel movements or sort of like an irritable bowel, and thin, brittle hair. Sometimes you might experience both hyperthyroid symptoms and hypothyroid symptoms. So it can really go either way. You can experience these interchangeably and at the same time. So if you are, and you're like, I don't know, sometimes I feel like I'm hyper, and then sometimes I feel like I'm hypo. So if that's the case, again, this really just comes down to doing the proper testing and really diving in to see what's going on and ruling out any autoimmunity. So stress and the thyroid. So we know there's going to be physical, mental, and even chemical environmental stresses. And when that happens, well, we release cortisol. And when the cortisol gets released, it decreases the thyroid stimulating hormone function, which means we're going to have low thyroid function. We're also going to have a low digestive state and not be able to digest properly. It also means we're going to produce low amounts of serotonin, our feel-good hormone. And then if you go to the doctor and present this, guess what they're going to give you? Oh, you're not digesting properly? Here's some antacids. Your thyroid function is low? Here's thyroid medication like Synthroid. Oh, and now you're not sleeping very well? Here's some sleep aids. And your mood isn't very good and you're not very happy. Why don't you take some antidepressants? That's our medical care system. We have a sick care system, not a healthcare system. And this is what will typically happen with women going to the doctor and presenting with these symptoms. This is what the remedy is going to be. So the doctor is just going to give you a Band-Aid approach. So I really want to share with you the story of this woman I had recently started working with, and she's 55 years old and has breast cancer, and she actually had a full mastectomy. And doing some digging and some investigative work, which is what we do, we want to look at the root causes. Okay, you have breast cancer, but like, why did all of this start? And so 10 years ago, she had a ton of fibroids, and fibroids are estrogen driven. If you have high estrogen going on in the body, it typically can lead to fibroids. And so about 10 years ago, when she was 45, she had a full hysterectomy. Well, now you have a full hysterectomy. Obviously, you're not producing estrogen or progesterone or any of that. And then about even 10 years prior to that, she was having a lot of digestive issues and was constipated, and she had a lot of gallstones and wasn't digesting very well, had issues with leaky gut. Of course, these were my things that I found from going through her questionnaire and from obviously speaking with her. And so she had her gallbladder removed when she was about 35-ish, 35, 37. She had her gallbladder removed. When you have your gallbladder removed, you actually have a really hard time breaking down fats because your gallbladder works to emulsify fat. So she had her gallbladder removed. And then we even do more digging. looking back farther, when she was about 25 years old, she was diagnosed with, guess what? Low thyroid. So she goes to the doctor at 25, being symptomatic with weight gain and fatigue and, really low energy and sleep issues, heavy menstrual flow, very heavy bleeding, issues with her menstrual cycle, cramping, bloating, headaches, a lot of cyclical headaches. So she was diagnosed with low thyroid. Well, the doctor gave her birth control pills, and the doctor gave her Synthroid, pharmaceutical thyroid, right? And so she went on that. She went on her thyroid. She went on her birth control pills. She continued to eat a really poor diet, didn't pay attention to that. Well, why would she? Because now she's on these pills, right? That solves everything, right? A lot of people think like taking the pills is just going to solve everything. Why do I have to pay attention to everything else now? And of course, the doctor wasn't going to have a conversation with her about her diet. And so age 35 comes, a lot of digestive issues, all these gallstones and all this stuff happening. Her gallbladder gets removed. And then years later, when she's 45, now those fibroids develop. She has a hysterectomy. And then now 55, she gets breast cancer. So look at the history there, right? When we understand what's happening with low thyroid, she obviously had estrogen dominance going on from the birth control pill. And the birth control pill is what caused her to have low thyroid in the beginning, or what actually made it even worse. And then the medications actually cause issues with digestion. And, there's obviously a lot of more here going on with like stress in her life, and like divorce and all this kind of stuff. And so over the years, not dealing with the estrogen dominance, not effectively healing the gut and having this chronic constipation going on. So now the fibroids develop, so she has a full hysterectomy. And then from there, she has an estrogen dominant breast cancer. So is this bad luck, bad genes, or is this just bad medical care? And this is unfortunate. And this is why we need to really become our own investigators and really take charge of our health, because we don't want to end up in the next 20 years with estrogen dominant breast cancer, because when it's something that we could have simply solved through dietary changes and supporting detox and making sure our bowels are functioning optimally and managing our stress. It really can be that simple. It really can be. But it's unfortunate that this is what most women and men are proposed when they go to their doctor. So it's completely unavoidable. And is it bad luck, bad genes, and bad medical care? Well, I don't think it's bad luck. I actually think, there's some genetic history there, and I definitely know that it's bad medical care. I see it all the time in my practice, and it's just really unfortunate because so much of it could have been avoided. Okay, so let's carry on here and let's get to some solutions for supporting the thyroid and supporting the adrenal glands. So when it comes to foods, we want to eat selenium-rich foods because these are going to support that conversion of T4 to T3 to that active thyroid hormone. So we can obviously supplement with selenium, or we can get it through our food. So Brazil nuts, just 2 Brazil nuts a day actually will give us enough selenium to support our thyroid. Spinach, yellowfin tuna, halibut, canned sardines, grass-fed beef, turkey, beef liver, all really awesome foods for getting in lots of selenium and supporting the thyroid. If you do not like beef liver, you can just take beef liver capsules. I mentioned those last time in our class, and they're really high in selenium and amino acids and lots of vitamin A, which is really great for your hormones. Zinc and B vitamin rich foods. And the bonus here is that not only do these foods and the zinc and B vitamins support the thyroid, it also supports the adrenal glands, which is really, really important. So really high quality animal proteins, green peas, asparagus, chickpeas, cocoa, but actually that's cacao. So we want real, raw, unprocessed cacao. Brussels sprouts, sesame seeds, and nuts like pistachio, flax seeds, and mushrooms. All of these are high in zinc. They're high in B vitamins. Zinc is actually great for supporting estrogen detoxification. B vitamins are involved in every neurological process in the body. And when we are stressed, we pee out our B vitamins pretty quickly because it means we're actually using them up pretty quickly in the body. B vitamins are going to be great for energy production, for digestion, for hormones, for stress, for supporting women's cycles and PMS. So B vitamins are really, really important. And then zinc is actually really great for the skin as well. And zinc is really great for men's prostate as well. So definitely you want to get your man taking some zinc. Coconut oil and coconut butter. Okay, so we are probably all really familiar with coconut oil. This is a picture of raw coconut butter. This is the one that I use pretty much every day. I love adding it to smoothies. I'll eat it right off the spoon. I will make sometimes like fat bombs with it. Or I will add it to like a coffee or yerba mate or like make a latte with it. And so the butter is basically like the meat of the coconut. And so just when you think of like a nut butter, like almond butter or cashew butter or something, you can use coconut butter in replace of those. So like even spreading it on like toast or something like that. It's so delicious. And coconut oil and coconut butter are really great for the thyroid. And I encourage you eat more of it because of a few things. It's hypoallergenic, which is really great, especially for autoimmunity. When it comes to any autoimmune conditions, typically you can't eat a lot of nuts and seeds. And so coconut oil and butter is allowed, and that's okay. It's very hypoallergenic. It also contains a lot of medium chain fatty acids, and it contains lauric acid. So these are things that actually really support the thyroid. And they even have antibacterial properties to it, which is great for supporting the bowels. And it's very detoxifying, really healthy fats that your hormones need. So coconut oil products are really, really great. Even if you're using like coconut cream, like canned coconut and like the canned coconut milk, those are all really great. You can also use coconut milk in the carton. That's fine, but you will get a better quality one in the can. Hold on, I just want to come back here and see if there are any questions. I don't think so. Okay. Okay, so coconut oil, really great. And I think most of us really, really love coconut oil products, so or just coconut products. And then specifically, when it comes to your adrenal glands, you want to support it with adaptogens. So adaptogens basically mean they help your adrenal glands better adapt to stress. It's like nourishment and food specifically for the adrenal glands. And so adaptogens are really, really important to include. These are some of my favorite ones. Holy basil, which you can also get in the tea, which is what I love drinking at night. Ashwagandha, rhodiola, American ginseng, reishi, and cordyceps. Those last two are medicinal mushrooms. And so typically I recommend getting this in like a formula. So you can just take like an adrenal formula and you will most often find like 3 or maybe 4 of these all in one formula, which is really great. And sometimes you'll also get like some B vitamins or some vitamin C in there as well. So the adrenal ones that I'm on contain the ginseng and the rhodiola and the ashwagandha. There's also licorice in mine, vitamin C, and it contains the porcine adrenal gland cortex. So it does come straight from the pig. It's the adrenal gland cortex, literally right from the pig's gland. So you can find a lot of great adrenal products on the market. And I think that including that into your protocol, especially if you do have like a lot of chronic stress going on, and you can relate to any of the symptoms that I've mentioned, then it would really be it would be really great, but it would be really important for your overall hormonal health because it's going to support the other issues that you're having with your hormones as well. And I actually find if I don't take my adrenal supplements, like last time I ran out of them and I had to go get them, then my sleep isn't as great. So when I start to really support the adrenal glands, I sleep so much better. So when it comes to supplements, we've, I think, talked about the foundational 5. So those are that's like your magnesium, your vitamin D, your omega-3s, the juice plus, and your probiotic. Those are your foundational 5. Those you can take every day, all the time, and it's going to cover the groundwork for pretty much everything. And then from there, you need to really assess what are the biggest symptoms you're experiencing, what are the hormones that need the most work, and where you need to put the energy into. And then that's going to help you decide what you do with your supplements. So like in my case, I take my foundational 5. I take my Juice Plus, I take my omega-3, I take my vitamin D, my magnesium, and my probiotic. So I've got those 5 down. To that, I add my adrenals. I add my adrenal complex. I add my B vitamins. I also add beef liver. And then I have a few supplements that I take at night. That's a lot. Oh, and then I have my desiccated thyroid. I take desiccated thyroid, which is basically bioidentical thyroid. And that's what I take. And it's a lot. And I take it every day. But that's what's really needed in order for me to get better. And my thyroid antibodies have come down a lot because of that. Without these supplements, none of this would really be happening. My diet alone wouldn't address it. And of course, I'm also putting in the lifestyle strategies to support stress and to support sleep and to slow down and all of that. So this is really all encompassing. And I know sometimes it can be really overwhelming when it comes to supplements, and yes, they are supplementary to obviously doing everything else really, really well. But when you really need to swing that pendulum, this is where they can be really, really incredibly helpful and get you from feeling like not so great to feeling amazing. So with your thyroid, selenium and iodine are really, really important. With iodine, you do have to be cautious about this one. If you have autoimmunity and like Hashimoto's, then you don't want to supplement with iodine. So this is why it's really important to get tested. And oftentimes, if you do take like a thyroid complex, which is going to contain a lot of thyroid nutrients in it, so that you don't have to take all of these separately, that's what I typically would recommend, then you can, sometimes they will have a little bit of iodine in there. But iodine is really important for the thyroid, and the thyroid uses up all that iodine. Like it's really important for the overall functioning of the thyroid. So just get tested so you can really rule out autoimmunity before you start supplementing with it. And then of course, I really do encourage working with a practitioner to really go over all of this, so that you can get a good supplement protocol in place. Of course, there's desiccated thyroid. So desiccated thyroid does come from the pork gland, and it is pretty much bioidentical thyroid, and it contains both T4 and T3. So mostly pharmaceutical like Synthroid or thyroxine is going to just contain T4, which makes no sense because T4 needs to get converted to T3. So oftentimes you need that T3 because you're not actually producing it. And you're just taking more and more and more T4, which sometimes can push you into hyperthyroid. So you really got to monitor this. It's not just something like, oh, you take it, you've got your supplements down, you can take them forever now. You have to continue to monitor and go back and do testing. Beef liver supplements are really great for both the adrenals and the thyroid, and again, for overall hormones. It's not necessary. You don't need to go run out and buy it, but I'm just adding it in there because it is really great and therapeutic and supportive. Your probiotic is really essential, and this goes for both thyroid and adrenals and just overall health. Your zinc and your B vitamins, again, really important. With your adrenals specifically, getting on a good adrenal complex supplement would be really great. I currently take the Pro Adapt, and sometimes it's called Ortho Adapt. It's the same thing. It's just different packaging, but it's the same thing. By AOR for my adrenals. Okay, so vitamin C is really important for your adrenal glands because just like B vitamins, it's water soluble. So you end up peeing it out really quickly because your body uses up so much vitamin C. So definitely this time of year too, because it's cold and flu season, you might want to get some extra vitamin C in. Juice Plus, the brand is Juice Plus. You can't just get that from any store. If anyone is interested in ordering the Juice Plus, then I just encourage you to email me or post about it in the Facebook group, and I can give you more details on that. But Juice Plus is basically like your antioxidants, and it's going to have all your vitamin C in there as well, and it's going to have tons of minerals. So that's just like the foundation. I never recommend anybody taking a multivitamin. I would much rather have people take Juice Plus, which is strictly fruits and vegetables in capsule form. So Juice Plus, that is the brand. I know, Janet, you're asking about brands. Vitamin C, so brands that I really like are AOR, CanPrev, Designs for Health, which can be a more professional brand that I have in my practice. Zymogen, another professional brand. You probably wouldn't be able to find it anywhere, unfortunately. Vital Proteins for beef liver. It's supposed to be beef, not beef, for beef liver. Cytomatrix. They make some really great supplements. They have a really good ACEs. So your vitamin A, your C, your E, and your selenium, plus your zinc. So that's a good one. Desiccated thyroid. That's obviously something you'd have to get prescription like from your naturopath. Probiotic brands. I really like New Life. I like Renew Life. I also like Genestra. AOR makes a really great advanced B complex. They make a good one. Okay, omega-3s. So omega-3, so I'm just thinking top of my head here for brands. So like Carlson's, these are all brands you can get in the health food store. Carlson's, why can't, Nutri-C, these are all good. Those are really good fish oil brands. Genestra does make some great ones. Like these are going to be a little bit more professional brands. Makes some good, and same with Cytomatrix for your fish oil. I hope I'm making sense here as I go through this. Okay, just trying to write that all out for you guys. Okay, so your omega-3s, really important because those are your healthy anti-inflammatory oils, your healthy omega-3s. They support your heart, your brain, your joints, your hormones, and your ovaries, all of it. Omega-3s are especially important when you're pregnant because the omega-3s actually help produce the baby's brain. So really important. And Juice Plus, actually, I have many clients that use that as a prenatal because it covers everything. You may need to take some extra folic acid, and that's about it. But it's a really great, works as a great prenatal. Vitamin D, so really great for supporting blood sugar and your insulin levels, and especially important for your adrenal and thyroid health. There's a vitamin D that I take, oh my God. I can run over there and grab it. It's like on my counter, but I just can't see it. It's something called like Solaray. It's a spray. It's a spray vitamin D. And I really, really like that one. I never recommend vitamin D in tablet form. You want it in a spray or you want it in a liquid because it's more bioavailable in the body. Magnesium, CanPrev, AOR, Designs for Health, they all make really great magnesium. So important for the adrenal glands, and especially if you have sleep issues as well as thyroid issues, you need that magnesium. And then again, your zinc and your Bs. Okay, so I think we've got one more slide here. So adrenal and thyroid, the adrenal and thyroid cure. Can I even say cure? Maybe I should say fix. So obviously, when it comes to supporting the adrenals and a thyroid, and we support the thyroid by supporting the adrenals, you want to manage or eliminate your stressors. That's number one. Of course, we want to focus on that as much as we can. Deep breathing. This is so important because especially when we are in a stressed state, we aren't focusing on our breath. And breathing, deep breathing is what's actually going to lower that cortisol. And especially if you're lying in bed at night and you feel like you just can't get to sleep and you feel really irritable, focus on your breath. And here's a really great, it's just the 4-7-8. So what you do is you breathe in deeply for 4 breaths, hold it for 7, and you release for 8. And this is actually like a proven method for supporting the cortisol and the adrenaline, cortisol, adrenaline, and really supporting any type of irritability or and anxiety. Wow, I really can't get my words out tonight. So really focus on that one, 4-7-8. And it's important to keep in mind that when you are breathing, when you inhale, you are extending your belly button, like you're pregnant, okay? And then when you exhale, you pull the belly button into the spine. Many of us are actually breathing wrong, which sounds crazy, but we're breathing with our shoulders and we're not actually doing these deep belly breaths. And that's the difference. You want to do these deep belly breaths because that's what's actually going to support the adrenals the most. We want to keep our blood sugar balanced, which is actually our class next week. And this is really important because if you have unstable blood sugar levels, then it's going to cause your cortisol to rise and it's going to be a stressor to the body. So eating your protein and your fat and your fiber at each meal, this is very important. You want to make sure that you've got enough protein, fat, and fiber to really keep you satiated so that you're not constantly grazing and snacking. Sleep. I put this one in big caps because it is so important. And we kind of covered this a few slides back when I mentioned that you need to create better sleep habits and create better sleep patterns. This is important. So having your lights really dim or just completely turn them off at nighttime, you should actually be sleeping in a completely pitch black room. Any light, even the light that comes off of your clock, is going to throw off your melatonin. If you wake up in the middle of the night and you go to the bathroom and turn the light right on, you've already suppressed your melatonin big time. So I know it sounds crazy, but in our house, we actually have red bulbs in our bathroom. So at nighttime when we go, the red bulbs go on because that light doesn't affect your circadian rhythm or your melatonin. And that's just my commitment. I'm really committed to getting good sleep. We all know what it feels like to not have good sleep, and any little tweak that I can make to support my hormones and my body, I'm going to do it. And something like red bulbs, that wasn't very expensive, and that was a really simple tweak. So creating those sleep habits are important. Maybe you need to get an eye mask. Make sure that all the lights are off. Your room is really nice and cool. Do not be sleeping in super hot and heated and wearing all these clothes. If you're okay sleeping naked, I really encourage you sleeping naked. You really do want your body to breathe and really support the natural thermostat, the furnace of your body, your thyroid. Eat an unprocessed whole foods diet. I think we know all about this one. And of course, through your meal plan, this is what we're focusing on, eating all whole foods. And the best part, we're doing it in a way that's supporting the fluctuation of our hormones throughout the month and through our cycle. So even better. Obviously, taking your supplements, so getting really clear on what those supplements are, and maybe starting with your foundational 5. And if you can't start with the foundational 5, that is okay, but start somewhere. That's what's important. It's important doing something versus doing nothing. Obviously, we want to be doing things that bring us joy. If, it's funny, actually, last night I was just meeting with my accountant, and he was actually one of the guys that, I hadn't seen in a while. And then here he shows up, like, kind of, packing on some weight, gray hairs, just doesn't look very good. And he's not taking care of himself. And he was talking about how he hasn't basically seen his friends in months, and close friends of his had a baby like 4 months ago and he's never seen them. And it's just all these things. And he's just so busy, and work is, stressing him out, and there's no joy in his life. He doesn't have any downtime. He's working on the weekends. And so that's where he really needs to start tuning in and creating some more balance for himself. And for men, that's even harder. That's way harder to do for women, because men typically have this idea that, it's obviously very masculine to keep going and pushing through and never slowing down. And you kind of have to do the hard labor and the hard work, and you have to hustle. And, men don't slow down. Men don't need time to nap and take time off. Like, they're the providers. So, it can be even more challenging for men to do that. And all these issues that I talk about here, obviously, aside from the stuff in relation to our cycles, so much of it still relates to men in terms of like adrenal health, thyroid health, all of it. Men can have Hashimoto's too, and it's actually very common. So men should be getting tested as well. If you're going to go to the doctor and ask for that testing, you should go with your husband or your partner and also get them to get tested as well. So really finding the things that bring you joy and can really use your creative energy. And if you're thinking, oh, I'm not a very creative person, I promise you somewhere in there, you're creative in some way. So really find those things and make it a point to do them regularly. And then the last point, pardon the language there, but slow the F down. We are go, busy all the time, and we end up putting ourselves last. And it's really important that we start to recognize, in order to speed up in our lives, we need to slow down. And that includes taking time off. That includes creating boundaries around your work and putting the computer away and the phone away at 7, 8 o'clock at night, whatever it is, and not touching it for the rest of the night. It includes, especially with me and my partner, like, we hold each other accountable on the weekends. And if I'm on my phone too much doing something, he calls me out on that. And vice versa. And we just are really open with that and have that communication, like, hey, how much longer do you need on the phone? Can we make a pact the next 4 hours? We don't need to touch our phones, and really hold each other accountable for that. So that's really important. And it's all these little things. We might not think that the phone is going to cause issues, but that's one of the biggest stressors, and constantly being stimulated and being busy and seeing what other people are doing. And it's just this mind numbing thing to like go on social media. And that can really affect our cortisol levels, because it's constantly stimulating for the brain. It's way overstimulating for the brain. And again, we're exposing ourselves to that blue light, which affects the melatonin production. So be really conscious of that. And that's the end of that. So are there any questions? That brings us to the end. Are there any last minute questions that you guys want me to address? Let me know. Post it in the chat box. I don't see anything. And of course, you guys can always go back into the Facebook group and post in the group there. If you have any questions, you can do that obviously throughout the week. Next week, we are diving into blood sugar. And then after that, we will be on our 6th week and going into our closing class. And I'll be really sharing with you guys how to move forward with all of this information and to really make the best use of all this information, and to really implement it ongoing, so that you can continue to have amazing results and amazing healthy hormones. Okay. I know you want to see this before you go to bed. So any questions, let me know. I'm not sure if there's anything else. Maybe not. All right. Well, guys, you can always post questions in the Facebook group, and I'm happy to answer them there. And I love seeing all your recipes and all your photos. It's really amazing. And I'd love to know if there's anything else that you need from me in order to really feel supported. Just let me know. All right. So see you guys in the Facebook group, and I will also see you next week for balancing blood sugar. If you have any questions specifically about balancing blood sugar, then of course post that in the group as well, and I'll be sure to answer them next week during our live class. All right. I hope you guys all have a wonderful night. I know there's some people here from Australia and all over. So based on your time zones, if you're going to bed right now, then I do encourage you, put the phone away, put the computer away. I'm about to do that right now. And maybe go get yourself some holy basil tea, get yourself in bed, turn the lights down, get the room really dark, the room really nice and cool, and create that sleep sanctuary so that you can have really good sleep. And that's one of the best steps you can take to supporting your hormones. All right. Thanks for tuning in tonight, guys. I'll see you guys next week, and have a great night. Bye.